Hello guys, welcome to the Module 1 of our UI UX design course. I'm so glad to have you here and I'm happy you could make it to this class. So today we'll be talking about the introduction to UI UX design, and I want you to pay attention as I take you through the journey of what it takes to become a UI UX designer. The goal of this module is to make you understand what UI UX design is and who is a UI UX designer, and also to tell you about the key difference between a UI designer and a UX designer, and also your role as a UI UX designer. We'll also be touching the best practices in UI UX design. So first, by definition, what is UI UX design? And what are the key difference between UI UX design? By definition, UI stands for user interface and UX stands for user experience. Now, these things go hand in hand, and UI UX design generally is the designing of digital products, either a mobile application or a website that solves user problem. So when you design a product that solves problem for users, a digital product that solves problem for users, it is tend to be called the UI UX design. Now, the UI aspect of this role focuses on the visual elements of the interface, which includes the layouts, the colors, the typography, the icons, the buttons, those things that you can see. Take, for example, your mobile application. Pick a mobile app on your phone, open it, the colors, the way the fonts are arranged, the font type, those are your UI design. The US aspect talks about the overall experience of the user when interacting with the product. So that app that you've opened, try to log in, try to perform different tasks. The UX aspect talks about how you feel and how you experience that product. Does it do what you want it to do? Do you feel happy using it? Do you feel excited using it? So that is the difference between a UI design and a UX design, and I hope you understand it. Let's move over to the next thing. Who is a UI UX designer? I'm going to explain what it means briefly. A UI UX designer is one who specializes in creating user interface and designing user experience for digital products. Just like we said in the previous slide, UI design talks about the visual interface and UX design talks about the experience. So a UI UX designer is someone that creates both the interface and the experience for digital products, just like such as websites, mobile application, softwares, and any other interactive platforms. UI UX designers mostly work closely with people who call product managers, developers, and other stakeholders to understand project requirements. They also collaborate on design concepts and they iterate on designs based on user feedback. Now, what this means is a UI designer does not work in isolation in product development. So for a product, that mobile app in your hand, for it to be what is in your hand, the UI designer work with people that are called project managers, developers, and other stakeholders, just like the product owner, to understand what the product is about. They also collaborate in design concepts, and also they iterate on design based on user feedback. So when these products are being pushed out and people give feedback on the product, it is the job of a UI designer to take this feedback and make the product better. I hope you understand what a UI UX designer is. So next is the best practices in UI UX design. What are the best practices when it comes to UI UX design? The first one we want to look at is user-centered design. Your design must have the user in mind and it must focus on their needs and preference. So when you're designing a product, you have to remember that it is always user first because you're actually designing for people. These people are called your users, and you have to focus on their needs when you're designing your product and make sure that this product solves their needs. The next one is consistency. When you're designing a product, be it an application or a website. Make sure that your users are familiar with the product and they can easily navigate the product. I have an example on my screen that states that if you are to make a submit button color to be blue in your product, all the submit button on the product should follow the same color. So if you have a particular button on a product and the color is blue, and you go to another page of that same product or website and the color changes to something else, that is a bad design. Why that is important is because you want the user to stay consistent with your product and to be familiar that whenever they see this button, it means submit and not something else. Now, the next one is keep it simple and minimal. Keeping a design clean and straightforward, avoid clutter and unnecessary elements. You don't need that. Now, why that is important is because when you have simple design, you are able to communicate well with your users. Remember, your product is always user first. And when they don't enjoy using your products or they find it difficult to use, it is a bad product. Next one is responsive. Whenever you're designing a product, always remember that all devices are not the same. So if you're designing a product for a desktop application or a website, don't just assume it can only be viewed on websites. Also look at the mobile side. If your user decides to use their phones to view the website, how is it going to look like? So you have to consider that when you're designing. So when you're designing for desktop, also remember some of your users are using tablets and most of them are going to use a mobile phone. Remember, it's always user first, which is our first definition here. It's user-centered design. The last one which we are going to look at is accessibility, which is designing a product for everybody, including people with disabilities. Looking at the example on my screen, if you're designing a product, you have to look at the colors you're using. You have to look at the opacity. If you're designing a product, people with eye problems, will they be able to see your buttons properly? Will they be able to see your text properly? People that can't hear, how will they be able to communicate with your product? People that can't talk, how will they be able to communicate with your product? So you have to put them in mind when you're designing a product. Now, based on the best practices that we've listed so far, I would like you to mention 2 applications that does not follow the rule of simplicity. Remember what we said about simplicity? If you can't remember, just go back and watch the video. And I will see you in Module 2. Thank you.